Welcome back, everybody, to Too Many Hobbies. Today we're going to be talking about Airplane Identification, Volume 1, Episode 1. The Boeing 747-400 versus the Airbus A380. The 747 we're going to be talking about today is the 747-400. Many people know the 747 as the Queen of the Skies. A four-engine aircraft made back in the early 70s, has a range of 13,449 kilometers or about 7,262 nautical miles. I had the fantastic opportunity to fly on one of these aircraft, this Virgin Atlantic, this summer on my trip to England. Pretty easy to identify, four engines. You have the winglets on both wings here in the arrows that you see. Also, that defined hump, very defined hump there at the top of the aircraft, provides the aircraft a second deck. But you'll notice that that second deck doesn't go the full length of the aircraft. Also, the cockpit is on the second deck of this aircraft, and the windows on the main deck there you can see come all the way out to the nose. This is something very specific to the 747, a way you can identify it. The 747-400 also has four main landing gear, two body gear, and two wing gear. You can see here on all the gear, there are two axles or four tires per gear. This is another way to identify this aircraft when it's at the gate or rolling by on a runway or a taxiway, very specific to the 747. You can see here that this 747 with Virgin Atlantic, you can identify it with the four engines, the winglets that go in the vertical direction. This British Airways 747-400 that's overhead, you can see and identify it by that large vertical stabilizer, the four engines, the winglets on the end of each of the wings going vertically only, and that defined hump at the front of the aircraft, that second deck, but not going all the way to the rear of the aircraft with that second deck. Those are some really good things that are going to tell you this is a 747. Now those vertical winglets are what's going to tell you that this is a 747-400. Later on in some other episodes we'll talk about the other 747s that are out there. This next picture is going to show you a Cathay Pacific 747. You can see it's quite a distance, but you can identify it by that large vertical stabilizer and that very defined hump at the front or towards the nose of the aircraft, but again, not going all the way to the rear of the aircraft. Now we're going to talk about the Airbus A380, and I'll be able to identify some of the differences that you see between the A380 and the 747-400. The A380, like the 747-400, has four main engines, but some big differences that you're going to see, that you see on this guitar A380, is it has winglets, both above the wing and below the wing, unlike the 747-400 that only has the winglets above the wing. As we continue to look at this Qatar Airlines A380, you can see that the second deck goes all the way from the forward part of the aircraft to the aft part of the aircraft. The A380 is the only true double-decker airliner that is out there. Another way to differentiate the A380 from the 747 is looking at the front of the aircraft. You'll notice two things. The cockpit is actually between the upper deck and the lower deck, and there is no windows all the way to the front of the aircraft because that is where the cockpit is, unlike the 747-400 where the cockpit sits above that first deck and you can have seats all the way to the front of the aircraft. As we look at this Lufthansa A380, you can notice another difference as this airliner is rolling by the gate, something about the landing gear. Just like the 747, the A380 has four main landing gear, two body gear and two wing gear. But the big difference here is the body gear of the main landing gear on the A380 has three axles each, or six tires per gear. That's going to differentiate this from the 747 because the 747 only has 2 axles on their body gear with 4 tires. Now these two aircraft are pretty easy to identify or separate from each other, but hopefully these are some tips you can use on your next trip to the airport to do a little plane watching and identification. I'm going to leave you with a video of an A380 on takeoff out of Frankfurt. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the bell for the notifications, and we'll see you in the next episode.